Hey guys, I just want to quickly mention that the commentary you're about to hear in this video was recorded before the real-life Japan race. It was meant to be uploaded just after the race, but I wanted to add this message of support at the start of the video. I'm really praying that everything goes as well as it can for Jules Bianchi after his accident in Japan. Hello guys, I'm Fizzy and welcome to a race around the mighty Suzuka circuit in Japan on this preview build that I have of F1 2014. This is one of my first proper races on this game, and I thought I'd do it around Japan because that is the venue that we're at in real life F1 this weekend as well. And we are gonna jump straight to the grid in the Williams car of Valtteri Bottas. We are running with all of the driving assists disabled, so no traction control and stuff like that. I'm also driving with a steering wheel against the Legend AI, as the lights are now going out for this 25% distance race around Japan, shifting up quite early off the line to limit the wheel spin, because wheel spin is something this game definitely has a lot of with no traction control, and diving around the outside of Vettel into turn 1, giving the Force India a little bit of a tap on the rear there, making Hülkenberg go wide, and we're up to 6th place already. As we come towards turn 2, the sweeping left-hander, and Ricciardo has braked quite early, and we've gone straight around the outside up to 5th place. Ricciardo seemingly forgetting that you don't really need to brake for that left-hander, as he comes sweeping through this very tricky sector 1, having to correct a little bit of oversteer as the car was not quite stable around there. It must be noted that I'm running a custom setup for this race, but I'm not really sure how good it is. Crucially, the wings are at 4.2, and you could argue that because of that very sweeping sector 1. The wings should probably be put even higher than that, but I did test that out earlier, and you're just losing so much on the straight by going much higher than that, and I found 4.2 to be a reasonable balance in terms of speed and grip so far. And going through the hairpin there, you can see me going all the way down to first gear just to get a car turned round, but shifting early up to second gear because first gear will just spin your wheels up really badly. And quite early up to third and fourth as well, while balancing the throttle, as it really is quite tricky out of slow corners like that hairpin with the traction control turned off. And so far I've really found myself struggling to keep up with the AI out of very slow corners especially. As we're now coming down the long straight towards 130R, a lovely flat out corner on this game as well. And we're actually gaining on Alonso going towards the braking zone, but not quite close enough to have a go at him. Going down to second gear for this chicane, and you can really see me really struggling to get the car straight. And again, on the massive bump through the final corner, which really just want to unsettle the car every time you go over it. And now we're rapidly gaining on Alonso in his slipstream, pulling to the right to go up the inside into turn 1. Taking advantage then of the relatively low downforce that we're running in this race with 4.2 wings. That move I definitely would not have been able to pull off with the wing settings I was running earlier in 9.7. But it does come at a cost, of course, through these corners here where you really need the downforce to be with you. I was really struggling quite a bit with understeer and having to be very cautious on the throttle to not have the back end step out, as we went a little bit wide onto the grass there, and the back end did step out, but we managed to control it nicely. And one thing I was quite surprised about is that you're starting this 25% race with a plus 2 laps of fuel, so quite a lot more fuel on board than you really need to finish the race. So I decided to turn the fuel mix up to rich and push the revs a little bit more in an attempt to try and close the gap to Massa and the Mercedes cars ahead, which had now built up to over a second. Now skipping to the end of lap 3, the gap is still 1.3 seconds, but I had a good braking zone there, gaining a little bit of time and sliding out of the corner, and again really struggling to control it. Every time you go over that bump on the final corner, the car just wants to throw you in the pit wall every time. But we managed to set the fastest lap of the race while in rich fuel mix, so at least we were close in a bit at this point, but not very quickly. I really am having to push to the max to keep up with these guys. Obviously, Williams not the fastest car in the game. It's kind of in that second tier group of cars, along with the McLaren, probably Red Bull as well, because they don't have great straight line speed seemingly. Whereas Mercedes is definitely the quickest car, and Ferrari surprisingly quick as well, I've found so far. So you have to say that Felipe Massa ahead, my teammate here, is doing a great job to keep up with that Mercedes in second place at least. It looks like whichever Mercedes is currently leading is kind of starting to pull up a little bit of a gap, as the rain lights for the cars ahead are blinking a bit there, seemingly the automatic ERS system harvesting a bit of energy there, as we are again struggling over that bump coming out of Spoon Corner onto this back straight. And I'm not really closing the gap too much at the moment, kind of staying just about within the 1 second zone. And whoa, having to correct quite a bit of a slide there coming out of the S's. And we have to cool down the engine a little bit, because obviously I was running rich now for a few laps, and I've turned it back down to standard, and the engine has cooled down a bit. I'm not really sure how much it affects the engine performance to have an overheated engine, but the engineer told me to cool it down, so I kind of tried to do that anyway. I imagine the fuel might be burning quicker actually when the engine is really hot compared to when it is not, so it is probably a good idea to try and keep it within a reasonable temperature. So we have now skipped to the end of lap 6, and the tires are kind of starting to wear a little bit. You can see the gap is pretty much the same, and Alonso is caught back up to us, so starting to struggle slightly more as the tires wear off. Obviously with the traction control turned off, you will feel the effects of tire wear a lot more, and the car will easily start to unsettle as it did there going into the pit lane, and we kind of knocked the ball out there I think as we went sideways into the pit entrance. But quite a few pit crews now out in the pit lane. You could see my teammate Massa carrying on. Alonso came in with me, and also Lewis Hamilton I think is Mercedes back there. And we're obviously going to get the prime tyres now fitted onto the car to go to the end of the race. Obviously with a 25% distance you do not need any more than one pit stop. So we might come out in a little bit of traffic here as some cars have carried on for another lap. We have Maldonado coming down the pit lane there. But we have quite a bit of clean air it looks like. But crucially Lewis Hamilton there has come out just behind Maldonado, so he might get held up a bit there. So we turned the fuel back up to rich now to try and close this gap, while Lewis Hamilton is being held up quite massively as you can see. We're definitely getting closer to the back of this pair, as it's obviously crucial for us to have a good outlap to hopefully gain a bit of time to Massa and maybe even Rosberg, who was leading the race. As we know, Hamilton and Maldonado had going side by side into 130R, and Hamilton has lost out. There's been a little bit of a tangle there, and Hamilton lost all of his speed, and we've just breezed past him. Actually had to do quite well not to run into the back of him there, that's how much speed he lost. As Maldonado go into the pit lane now, which is good for us, because that opens up the track with a clean air. And you gotta say, Hamilton probably not trusting Maldonado enough to stick to going side by side through 130R, and honestly, I do not blame him. As Massa has just come out of the pits and crucially rejoined the track just ahead of us, so we did not manage to jump him through pitting one lap earlier. And you can see Rosberg up there quite far ahead, so he looks to have this race in the bag at the moment, while we are holding up his teammate Lewis Hamilton through the through this section here. There's actually quite a train behind us now. There's Alonso in there, and there's the Red Bull as well. So there's a bit of a Bottas train, but we'll try our best to shake him off, while also trying to chase after Massa. We obviously want to finish as the #1 Williams driver in this race, especially as the win might seem a little bit out of reach at the moment. And now coming towards the end of the lap, we've closed in on Massa with the straight line speed, and now we got a bit of gravel on our tyres, and also struggling for grip out of this chicane, really struggling to find the right balance on the throttle, and oh my god, correcting so many times, and now Lewis Hamilton is attacking us and forcing us to go defensive down the straight towards turn 1. But luckily we also have DRS from Massa's car ahead to defend, and now we're getting very close and comfortably close to Massa through the first corner, which I'm sure Frank Williams will not be too happy with. That we might have just lost out to Lewis Hamilton now, but no, he brakes, going through the kink, allowing us to get back around the outside. Lewis Hamilton not showing his usual aggression there, and that is how quickly the tables can turn. Instead of challenging Massa down the main straight, we had to defend from Hamilton, and again really struggling for grip through the S's, but we hold on and still remain in P3 on the podium, with about 4.5 laps remaining in the race. So we've skipped a bit further forward again, and you can see that the fuel now has gone down to optimal, as we've been running rich mix to try and catch up to Massa, and again we've closed in on him down the back straight. But in order to have a go at him down the main straight now, we really need to get a good exit out of the chicane, and again we've taken that curb and also that bump and it's just proven to be a massive struggle going through there in these cars. We've not managed to nail it so far. And again, Hamilton is getting very close on the straight, but I'm going to stay on the racing line this time. And we're now closing really quickly on Massa as well with DRS, looking to the outside of turn 1, trying to hang it around the outside. And we're going to be side by side with Massa going into turn 2, and he's trying to push us slightly onto the grass, but ultimately he decides to back out of it, and we managed to gain the place going up to second, which is a crucial move, up to second, passing Massa before Hamilton could pass us. Ow, but we almost lost it though, pushing the throttle too hard and having to correct oversteer. But now it is all about keeping it together and making sure we don't run out of fuel as well, putting it down to standard now for the final 2.5 laps of the race. Because with a 6.9 seconds worth of a gap up to Nico Rosberg in first place, second is the best that we can really hope for at the moment. And I have to say, I've been quite impressed with the Legend AI at the moment, at least around this track. Obviously, at the start of the races, when they're in big packs of cars going side by side through the corners, they're not particularly great. But once the race settles down, they seem to really have some good pace on this game. They don't seem to struggle with traction as much as we do. I mean, they might have some kind of traction assist enabled, which in turn helps them go faster and makes it more of a challenge for us as the player to keep up. Because it seems to be, especially in the slow speed traction zones, where I'm struggling the most to keep up, obviously with traction control turned off. And I'm not really sure how well the video shows this without having, you know, a visual throttle input on the screen, but I'm really finding myself having to balance the throttle a lot in this game. You have to be kind of patient coming out the corners, get the car straightened up, and then get on the throttle. If you get hard on the throttle while having a turning angle on the wheel in the slow corners, then you will really struggle to keep the car straight. So I'm gonna leave you with the game sound now, I think, for the rest of this lap as we come towards the end of the race.
Your rear tyres look a little cold. Try to warm them up.
So, second place is what we ended up with in this 25% race around Suzuka, the Japanese Grand Prix. I hope you enjoyed the race, and I hope you will enjoy the real-life F1 race around Japan as well, or did enjoy that race, depending on whether you watched this video before or after that took place. We had Rosberg dominating the race, with Lewis Hamilton running into problems and ending up all the way down in 9th, behind my man Kevin Magnussen. We'll have to wait and see. Either way, feel free to leave a like on this video if you did enjoy it, and if you're keen on seeing some more F1 2014 gameplay from me in the future, you might as well click that subscribe button as well. So thanks for watching, guys, and goodbye.